93.9 LI News Radio.
Well, certainly you can make the case. A very historic verdict handed down yesterday. And here to talk about it, Brian Wagner, criminal defense attorney, also founder of Wagner Law Associates, based in New York City. And Brian, a former prosecutor as well of the DA's office in Brooklyn. We welcome him back to the airwaves of LI News Radio. Brian, good to have you here, my friend.
Good morning, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Well, I tell you, that was some verdict. I got to tell you, I didn't think anything less was going to happen.
No.
I thought there was too much. You know, smoke, fire, 60 women, but you know, more importantly, I'll tell you this whole Me Too era and everything else. I think a message it had to be delivered. It just had to, and that jury certainly came through in a big way. You can actually make that case.
Yeah, I agree with you. But then again, I thought that after the first trial as well. So sometimes we get it wrong, I guess. No doubt. But, you talk about years of accusations, a mistrial. Listen, this guy, iconic, I get it. America's dad and everything else, it didn't come into play. You look at this jury, and they put all of that out there. 3 counts. Aggravated indecent assault, and a bit of an outburst from Bill Cosby yesterday in reference to D.A. Kevin Steele, an expletive there. But all in all, the guy showed no emotion. He looked down, I understand, as the 4 women read the guilty count. But all in all, you look at this Me Too era and everything else. Big message. Yeah, and I think the Me Too era definitely played a large role. The other difference is that unlike in the other case where only one other woman was allowed to testify about a similar incident, in this case, 5 other women were allowed to testify. And so now the, consensual and that she's a gold digger argument just doesn't sound as good to this jury as opposed to the last jury.
No doubt about it. And, listen, the case centered around the testimony from Andrea Constant, said he drugged and molested her. After she asked him, for some career advice. But, it's always a tough fight, right, Brian? When you have lawyers back and forth claiming interaction was consensual, that's a tough one there. But I think when you have 5 women, when you have, and listen, if you're on this jury, you're just not immune to stuff. You see what's happening with Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey and half of Hollywood, it seems. You're just not immune to this stuff. That has to come into thinking here. And I think this jury, when they sat in that room to deliberate, Brian, I think they put themselves under the gun here. They put themselves under a lot of pressure, knew that, listen, their actions would kind of make a real statement here. And I think they were... whether or not you had some back and forths in your own mind here, I think they had to deliver this type of message.
Yeah, I think juries in general, we tell them to do a lot of things, and this is one of the lines that you'll almost always hear in a summation. We tell you to check a lot of things at the door, but not your common sense and not your logic. And in this case, logically and common sense told you this is not consensual. If you drug her and you have a sexual relationship without consent, and then you've done it to at least 5 other women because that's what the jury heard, the jury gets it, and they take it seriously. And so while the Me Too was definitely prevalent, I think in this case they were really concentrating on the facts at hand, but the Me Too stuff definitely played a role in saying, wait a minute, this stuff is prevalent.
And I kind of question, we're talking with Brian Wagner, criminal defense attorney, I kind of question a little bit here of his team. Tom Mesereau, Kathleen Bliss, Brian, and I know they launched, there was a 2-hour-long closing argument session, a blistering attack dismissing the prosecution's case against their client, is based on, as they put it, flimsy, silly, ridiculous evidence. I don't know. I tell you, I don't know if I would have portrayed it that way. I really think it was dehumanizing the whole process. And I think it backfired on Mesereau. Mesereau, listen, he led the way back with Michael Jackson, that whole deal. I get it. You know, he's a tremendous has a tremendous reputation in celebrity cases, but I don't know if I would have went that route, completely dismissing it as silly, as ridiculous, as flimsy. That's a tough one there.
So the problem is there's basically two defenses to any sexual assault case. It's mistaken ID. In other words, it wasn't me, and this is a terrible thing that happened to you, but you just got the wrong guy. And then there's it was consent. When you boil it all down, those are the two defenses. Mistaken ID was obviously never going to work because it's Bill Cosby. I mean, no one's going to mistake him for someone else. And so the other defense is consent. That's a hard hill to climb, or a hard mountain to climb, rather. And Tom Mesereau had to do what he had to do, but his case wasn't an easy case, and I think he actually did as well of a job as you can, because the DA this time around had a very strong case because of those 5 other prior bad act witnesses. That, to me, was the game changer, and also the admissions from the deposition in which Bill Cosby admitted that he drug women to have sexual relationships with him. I mean, that's a hard case for a defense.
No doubt. Talking with Brian Wagner, criminal defense attorney. And I think the straw that broke the back here in this case, Brian, I don't know if you agree here, is Montgomery County Prosecutor Kristen Feeden. You know, really declaring Cosby nothing like the image that he played on TV. You know, the whole thing, leading a secret life that ran counter to this wholesome image that Cosby projected as Cliff Huxtable on the Cosby Show back in the 80s. You know, I think she did a tremendous job kind of wiping out that whole America's Dad deal and really focusing on this other life that Cosby had. You know, the thing with the blue pills and the drinks and relax and the whole thing and the encounters. You know, she did a wonderful job portraying that, I thought.
Yeah, and a lot of that is through jury selection, right? I mean, you talk about how the person that you see on TV or in movies is not necessarily the real person they are. That's an act. They're an actor. But I completely agree with you in terms of that.
All right, let's talk about the process now. You know there's going to be a Mesereau appeal. That's going to happen. There's also a sentencing to be dealt with here. I mean, listen, Cosby's 80. 10 years on each count. He's not going to get it. You know, I'm looking probably in the area of 5 to 10. I don't know if you agree with that, but give me an idea regarding sentencing and appeal and how they'll kind of coincide here.
So in terms of sentencing, the judge will out a sentence that is appropriate for this witness and for something that accounts for each one of the incidents. So I would expect something closer to 10 to 15 years, something of that nature, just because of the seriousness of the account. Now, Tom Mesereau's job, the defense attorney's job, is going to be to judge, don't just judge my client based on this incident in which he was convicted, but look at his character as a whole. Here he is. He's done a lot of good things. Yes, the prosecution said he's done some bad things, but here's why he deserves leniency plus his health. I don't know how successful that will be, but that's obviously the argument the defense team will have to make. In terms of the appeal, I think they have a real appellate issue. The fact that his deposition in 2004 or 2005 was given only after then the DA said that we're not going to prosecute, Bill Cosby did not assert his Fifth Amendment right. The Fifth Amendment, if you believe you're going to be prosecuted for anything you said, you assert your Fifth Amendment. Here, he was not allowed to assert the Fifth Amendment because he was told, we're not going to prosecute you. Therefore, the Fifth Amendment kind of disappears. So my sense is that's the biggest appellate issue. Now, it's already gone before the judge on the trial level, but that's really where I would be concentrating.
No, that's a great point. So that whole thing with the Fifth could come into play in a big way. Brian Wagner with us, a minute or two left. So in essence, give me a time frame as far, we know sentencing probably 60 to 90 days, Brian, but what about the appeal? When does Mesereau have to come in with his appeal? Is it before the sentencing date actually occurs? I mean, how does that work as far as being coincided with each other?
So he's going to file a notice of appeal probably within the next 10 to 30 days. The notice of appeal is just going to say we intend to appeal certain aspects of the trial. He doesn't need to, quote-unquote, perfect the appeal, and that means basically identifying the issues that he's going to contest until well after the sentencing. We're talking about a year after the sentencing. So that's the process. In the meantime, however, while this appeal is pending and while this appeal is going on, I would expect Bill Cosby to be incarcerated. And frankly, any sentence he gets because of his age and his health is most likely going to be a life sentence.
Wow, that is unbelievable. So you think closer to 15? I thought a little bit less. I tell you, that's unbelievable. And you talk about ramifications and everything else in this world we live in of sexual harassment. Boy, I tell you, quite a statement made in Norristown, PA, yesterday afternoon. Brian Wagner, a pleasure. Good stuff, breaking it all down. Criminal defense attorney, founder of Wagner Law and Associates, based in the city. And Brian, of course, former prosecutor for the DA's office in Brooklyn. I tell you, interesting stuff. Brian, thanks again for a couple. We'll talk soon.
Jay, thank you so much. Be well.
You got it. 7:49. Quick break. Jeannie coming right up.